The Property Show is offered to you by Kings Group, a multi-award-winning company. Your local high street property business that delivers on results and service. We'll get you moving.
The Property Show is produced by Iro Livanou and presented by Karl Knipe, partner at the Kings Group Estate Agency.
Good evening and welcome to you. What a show we got planned for you this evening. Tonight I'm looking at the mistakes that many landlords and sellers make when marketing their property. Presentation is everything, which is the title of part 2 of the show. We'll look at what you can do to ensure your property is going to attract the right kind of tenants and buyers, why the 25th and 26th of December is so important to make sure your property is marketed, if you decide to carry out your own viewings, what you're going to need to know on those sort of things, and how you can give your property a bit of curb appeal. Is it important that you have a property expert advising you, or should you take, and if so, should you take their counsel? Firstly though, deal or no deal? Or no Brexit, as it seems after yesterday. It's the modern nemesis of the public. What will this mean for the property market? How is a Brexit deal being agreed by Parliament or no deal going to affect the property market, both for landlords and sellers, early in 2019? Is there any upside to either outcome? Are we staring at potentially 30% falls in property prices as spouted by Mark Carney, the Bank of England governor? Or is project fear everywhere? What's your thoughts? Call us this evening on 0208 346 3345 or text us on 0737 6611033. It's important, we want to hear from you. Put your questions across to my guests, who I'll introduce in a minute, whether it's anything to do with selling or renting or just Brexit in total. With me tonight to disperse their wisdom and advice, I have the best looking trio since Atlas, Athena and Apollo were strutting their stuff back in ancient Greek mythology. We've got Veta Sitaropoulos from Athé Design Limited. Good evening, Veta.
Good evening.
How are you?
Very well, thank you.
Lovely to have you with us.
Great to be.
Veta is an Australian-born architect and interior designer based in Islington, North London. She works mainly in residential design for both private clients and property developers. Her current projects include the interior design and renovations of several large houses in Maida Vale, Queen's Park, West Hampstead and Borough, with new projects in Spain and Sicily. Cool, very international.
I know.
Recent projects for developers have included high-end show apartments in Manchester, Liverpool and Leicester. Veta's strange fact is she learnt to drive in the very same car that her mother and grandmother did, a family heirloom.
Yep.
Whereabouts was that?
That was in Brisbane, where I grew up.
In Brisbane?
Yeah.
But originally your family are
they're Greek. My dad is Greek. He grew up in Thessaloniki and moved to Australia when he was about 30 years old. And yeah, that's where he raised his family.
Fantastic. Business was inspired by the Greek goddess Athena, goddess of wisdom, courage and strategic warfare, along with many more strengths. She hasn't so far had to call on the strategic warfare side, but with Russell here with me tonight, you never know, she might just have to.
I was waiting for the first gig.
We've got Russell Quirk, CEO of Emoov.
Well, not really.
Not really. Well, ex-CEO of Emoov, up to 48 hours ago you were. A friend of the show, is in the hot seat. Very good to have you with us, Russell.
Thank you very much.
What has been a testing few weeks for you in Emoov, I know that, but we'll come on to that briefly before we get on with the show. Russell's a third-generation estate agent working in the traditional sector for many years before selling the family business to pioneer the hybrid model, with an emphasis on empowering technology, outstanding customer service and fairer fees. Russell's recognised as a property expert and market analyst within the media, regularly featured on TV and radio, including The Property Show here at LGR 103.3 FM, and commentates on a wide variety of topics, analysing the market, data and trends. Good evening again.
Good evening again.
I'm really pleased you're here with us.
Thank you very much. Good to see you.
Kristjan, the Viking Byfield. The Viking is his nickname. Good evening, Kristjan. From Base Properties in Shoreditch. Kristjan, it's great to have you back on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me back, mate. Good to be here.
Well, I don't know how we're having you back, but no, you're fantastic. Kristjan started his professional career as a trained stage actor before he fell into a estate agency. Not literally, I take.
No, not quite literally, but yeah, not a planned career path. Let's put it that way.
In 2002, it meant he could earn money without returning to uni. He started a small independent startup agency in Islington, working on a commission-only basis, and loved it.
Yeah. Yeah, much to my surprise, really, just took to it. It was one of those careers, no plan to it, bit of a taste, and loved it ever since.
And I was going to put one of the strange things about you, but there's quite a few things, isn't there, Kristjan? But let's just say you take your dog to work every day, Diamond, is that right?
Yeah, my little Staffy comes to work with me every day. Bonkers little beast.
How old is
she's about 9 now. She's
9.
a rescue, but yeah, utterly mental. So well suited for me, you know.
Okay.
And estate agency.
Yeah, exactly.
Right, so everybody out there, remember we want to hear from you tonight with your thoughts and comments. As I said, please call us on 0208 346 3345 with a question or a comment you want to make, or text us on 0737 6611 It's your show. Right, straight in. But before we proceed with the show, we need to deal with the elephant in the room, Russell.
Is that me or Kristjan?
I thought you were going to say, is that me? I know the listeners want to be the first, LGR listeners want to be the first to hear live from yourself about the events the last few days, which culminated 2 days ago, 48 hours ago, Monday, with you admitting defeat and calling in the administrators, James Cowper, Creston at Emoov.
Yes.
What's your side of the story?
Wow, it's only an hour-long show, isn't it, Carl? So look, that's accurate. We called in the administrator voluntarily, actually, on Monday afternoon, and that was the kind of culmination, really, of about a 5-month fight, frankly, to kind of save the Emoov business. We did a deal back in end of May, beginning of June, which was, at the time, quite a big merger deal with 2 of our competitors, a sales competitor, which was Tepelo, and a lettings competitor by the name of Urban. And without putting too fine a point on it, that deal was structured around a certain amount of money coming in, which didn't arrive from certain quarters. And because we're a growth business, I guess, and I'll just define that, I suppose, for a second. We're a business that wants to grow its brand, or needs to grow its brand and its proposition really, really quickly. So therefore we spend a lot of money on above-the-line marketing, so TV, radio, PR, and so on. Lots of money on digital marketing. So would you believe we were spending between £300,000 and £400,000 a month with our lovely friends at Google, all to build the brand, build the proposition, and to really get out there. So there was a cash burn, huge cash burn, and not to mention actually also obviously the money we spend on staff, the team, particularly the senior team, so execs from Just Eat, Groupon, and goodness knows what else, and then the technology. So we spent about £7 million on technology insofar as a platform, and so we spend a lot more than comes in. But the philosophy is, and if you think about the other kind of well-known growth businesses like Deliveroo and Amazon and Uber and so on, not that I'm particularly comparing ourselves to them, but it's the same philosophy, that you spend lots of money, fuel the business, and you end up with a big exit, and that was the whole plan. But of course that needs funding. And unfortunately, because the funding didn't come through that was pledged, we run out of cash. Simple as that. And so despite trying to raise money elsewhere, despite also in the last month or two actually having approaches and courting potential buyers for the business, so all sorts really, none of those things came to fruition. And when it gets to the stage where you've got staff and customers that are starting to suffer because of that inability to kind of pay bills and so on, where I've very much tried to put those customers and staff first in trying to save the business. You have to get to a point eventually where you call it a day and you throw the towel in. But I have to say, Carl, not from the want of trying. So an administrator gets called in, and unfortunately the casualties are staff, customers, creditors, shareholders, and it's been a terrible week for all of us. Lots of regrets, lots of sorrow, but yeah, look, we are where we are, but not for the want of trying, and also trying to improve the estate agency sector. I mean, in trying to make a big profit here, ultimately, in terms of a big cheque at the end of it, which unashamedly is, of course, what I was after, and so are my shareholders. That was about doing that as a consequence of trying to improve what actually most customers would say, from their perceptions point of view, is a pretty lousy industry, really, from the perception point of view. So that's what I set out to do. It's not worked out, but I've learnt a lot.
Yeah, I think episode 1 of one of your investors, they put out a statement today, didn't they, saying that you had a solid plan, but just not big enough investment to make it work on a national scale. Yeah, that was Simon Murdoch, who is just a really incredible guy. Actually, I mean, I've had lots and lots of investors over the last months and years. Simon, amongst 2 or 3 others, actually, has been incredibly supportive. I mean, really supportive. So not just financially, but in terms of his counsel, his support, his introductions, and so on. So unexpectedly, I saw that pop up last night, I think, which is an article he wrote about being circumspect, being philosophical, and he's certainly learned from it as a fund in terms of perhaps how to do things slightly differently in the future, and I definitely have. Yeah. Well, I don't want to dwell on it because we want to get on. We've got a lot to get through tonight, but I just want to say I've got to admire your courage and professionalism and commitment that you weren't prepared just to make apologies for this evening and sort of go away and drown your sorrows, I suppose, for a better thing. So
you've got to get back on the bike.
Yes.
And I think there's a lot of us in the industry who feel the same way. You know, I think there's a lot of us who do appreciate and acknowledge what you guys have tried to do, you know, and I think quite often at the better end of the marketplace, you know, the stronger agents, I think sometimes you can forget about what the weaker side of the market is like when you're interacting with the best of the best in the industry, which we often do at awards or industry events or whatever. You do forget that there is a side of our industry which is still massively lacking. I mean, I've recently experienced it. I've got a property out in Gloucestershire that, you know, we tried working with some local agents, and it reminded me just why we still need a lot of change in the industry. You know,
I think change is coming, though, don't you think?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And it is coming across, and part of that is driven by the likes of us in the full sector, you know, Karl King's Group and our company and other independents that are really pushing forwards on how you can continue to innovate and change a full service offering. But also the likes of Emoov and Purple Bricks and, you know, the other online counterparts have also equally made us step up our game. And
I would agree with that.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong. I mean, if you only got to look at I take the tennis world, Novak Djokovic and Federer and Murray and Nadal. Without those four at the same time, I don't believe either of them, any of those four, would have reached the heights that they have reached over the last few years. Everyone's had to step up. Anyway, you've done well, mate. Well
Thank
done.
you very much.
Pleased to have
Thank
you.
you.
So, let's move on. Let's get straight into it. No deal. Parliament refuses to ratify Brexit. This is looking more and more likely. Kristjan?
So, yeah, I mean, I back anyone to really pick what's going to come out of it.
How's that going to affect the lettings market? Let's say there is no deal. Let's say Parliament refuses to ratify Brexit. There's no deal. How's that going to affect the lettings market?
I mean, I think we've got to understand the complexities of it, and we won't really know that until it comes out. But I think what we've got to look at is the service industry in London is massively supplied by our European counterparts. If we're looking at an arrangement that means that low-skilled, relatively low, or should I really say more like average income Londoners from our European countries are no longer able to stay here and have to exit within X period of time, then I think that is going to have a sizable impact on the London rental market. I do think it's temporary because whatever arrangement we come out of, we will be going into, and you know, there will that void will get filled. We're not suddenly going to have.
But don't you think this year? I mean, the stats that I see is the lettings market, the turnover's increased this year. Don't you think that some of that is down to the insecurity of Brexit, where buyers aren't buying? They're saying, well, we'll go and rent for 6 months or a year. We'll wait and see.
Absolutely.
You know, we're not scared. Or worse still, they're speculating on prices, which you really should never do in the marketplace over a short period of time. I mean, you should be buying a property to live in on the basis that hopefully, you know, over the years, you make a little bit of money.
I think the thing is, there's so many changes happening at the moment. I think Brexit is one of a multitude of things which are impacting the marketplace at the moment. And again, it depends where you are geographically. I mean, the legislative and tax changes are having impacts both on lettings and sales. Stamp duty reform, etc., etc. I think there's a lot of things in the mix. But Brexit, I think, probably on the rental market, personally, I feel there's more damage that can be done to the rental market than the sales market. I think the sales market is more to do with other factors, personally. But the rental market, there could be quite a substantial impact on that. I do think it will recover. I don't have any long-term concerns about it. I hope not. We're primarily a lettings agency, but no, I do think there is going to be some turmoil over the next couple of years.
Question for you, Russell. In an article in the Negotiator magazine, 23rd of November this year, a couple of weeks ago, Paul Smith, CEO of Hearts Estate Agents, was quoted as saying he thought in a worst case scenario house prices would drop 20%. He also said he thought, in his opinion, that leaving the EU without a deal would be better for the housing market. This would include prices dropping only 5%. Is Paul right?
Well, I don't know what context he put around that. I mean, I'm not quite sure I see the logic there, why no deal would be better than a soft Brexit.
Yeah.
I think my view on Brexit, really, and look, we are 2.5 years in, really, if you take the kind of run-up to the EU vote itself in June 2016 up till now. What should have happened, I guess, if it was all doom and gloom, is particularly as, I think it's fair to say, politicians have completely mishandled the last 2.5 years. I mean, you know, it couldn't have been handled worse, could it? I mean, insofar as the governing party and the opposition all being kind of at sea and arguing and destroying themselves. So what I guess should have happened as a consequence elements of the shock vote being to leave, then the debacle over the last 2.5 years. Now we've got this situation where we don't know whether we're leaving or not, and whether it's going to be no deal or whatever. The property market should have fallen off a cliff, and it hasn't. I mean, it really hasn't. When you analyse this stuff, which I'm afraid I do, and you look at house prices.
I can't let you get away without saying we're going to have a little bit more time to do the analysing now.
Well, no, but I suppose thanks. I'll analyse even more. So, but if you look at prices, house prices are about 2% generically. Okay, I'm talking about the indexes that show a kind of national picture, and of course there are different pockets regionally, of course. But if you look at a generic, so what are house prices now versus last year? What were they last year compared to the year before? House prices are about 5 to 6% higher. Transactions actually are broadly stable over the last 2 years. In fact, the last numbers from ONS show that actually in August and September and October, house transactions have increased versus last year. So I'm maybe unrealistically so, but a very, very big Brexit optimist on the basis that if all that could go wrong, and kind of it's starting to go wrong, was to be factored into the property market, we should have seen house price drops, volume drops, and real issues, and we haven't. So I think, whilst there are a lot of people, I think, sitting on the fence, there's a lot of media kind of hyperbole and sensationalism, which certainly is contributing to some uncertainty. Lots of people sitting on the fence. I actually think that post-March, I think we'll all be very, very pleasantly surprised that actually we'll see a post-Brexit bounce.
Veta, what's your thoughts? I know you're not directly involved, but obviously you are involved in the property industry.
From my end, I think it's the purchasing that I'm noticing with my clients is more of an emotional need, or they are moving because they have to. Their family is growing.
Well, sorry to interrupt, but that, I think to some extent that's what Russell's saying. That purchasing is still going on.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not seeing any slowdown in people upgrading their properties for larger houses, for different locations, and that's all coming from what their families need, rather than people. And I hate to say this, people will find the money somewhere if they need to move house for whatever reason. And I think the comments that I'm hearing from my clients too are, well, if we sell in this market, we're buying in this market as well. So, things aren't changing too much in terms of how they're feeling.
So it's all great, Karl.
Right. Well, let me just say again.
That's that solved. No.
Well, and move on. Anyway, it's been a great evening. Let me just say again, look, there's shows for you guys out there. Please give us a call on studio number 0208 346 3345. That's 0208 346 3345. We're broadcasting on DAB in London, Birmingham, Manchester and Glasgow as well. Be great to hear from you. So are we sort of saying, our old friend Mr. Smith was also said in an article on the 22nd that ultimately the cost of buying a property is cheaper than renting on a monthly basis. It's mortgage affordability stress test for all buyers, but particularly first time buyers that remain the barrier for them to get on the ladder. Are we sort of really saying that actually the market's pretty strong and it's already been factored in the Brexit scenario? I mean, the question is, everything works out with Brexit, and when I say works out, there's actually a plan. We all might not like it, but there's actually a plan, and we all know what's happening. Are we saying that there could be a mini boom?
I think part of it, right, is life still goes on. I mean, Brexit has stolen 80% of the headlines, it feels like, since I was born, but, in the last 2 years. But the reality is life still goes on. Companies will still exist. We'll still go about our day-to-day lives. Most of us will still have jobs and still go out for dinner and still rent or buy or, whatever that is. I think the dramatic undertones that come with any Brexit discussion are this sort of cataclysmic end, whether it be the property market or the stock market or business or investments or whatever it is, the hyperbole around it, and coming from both sides as well. I mean, I think, I was a Remainer myself, but I've got to a point where I just, whatever happens, let's see it happen.
We've got somebody on the line. Let's go to who we got on the line there this evening.
Hi, I'm Paul, calling from Brentwood.
Oh, how you doing, Paul?
Yeah, not too bad.
Good. How can we help you? Well, have you got a question for anyone particular, or are you just going to throw it out there to the guys?
Hopefully a Veta, if I'm saying it right.
Yes.
I've got a property that I'm putting up for sale now because I want to get out of it. It was a buy to let because of Brexit. I'm not sure, so I'm kind of mitigating my spending.
Yeah.
I can't really afford an interior designer, and I don't want to spend loads on it. Is there any killer tips, like on a budget of maybe sort of £500 to £1,000 you would suggest I should spend on stuff to sort of improve or make better It's kind of furnished at the moment, typical 3-bedroom house. And I just want to give it, make it stand out to the competition a little bit to try and give it a chance. And is there anything that you would say you should do this or should do that I'm not going to get charged, a couple of grand?
Absolutely. There are lots of things you can do.
Paul's getting in early.
Yeah, he absolutely is.
Obviously, he's been looking at my Facebook posts.
I think there are a lot of things you can do without spending a whole amount of money, and I think we'll get into that a little bit later in the programme as well. But I think the very first thing you need to do is have a bit of a critical eye on what you're selling. Really think about what buyers are going to see when they walk in the door. There are fast, easy things you can do, just making sure everything is maintained properly, that the property looks lovely from the outside, whether that's new paint on the front door, new paint in the entryway. Small things like checking that all your kitchen cupboards are aligned and that you don't have things hanging off where they shouldn't be. I think people are wanting to walk into a property and know that they don't need to do anything and that it's maintained well, and then they're not going to need to spend any more money on it. So I think quick maintenance will do the job, and I think what we'll talk about later in the show too is how you can style a property.
Always leave them hanging, Veta. Always leave them hanging. Paul, can you keep listening and we'll give you a couple more little gems in a little while.
Thanks guys.
Thanks for calling, Paul.
Bye.
Thank you, cheers. God, he jumped ahead of the game there, didn't he? So just get back to where we are. So, as I say, the question is, yesterday, obviously, the MPs voted 321 to 299 on a Brexit withdrawal agreement. Amendment passed put forward by Dominic Grieve, which seems to me to say that if the Brexit deal that Theresa May puts to Parliament next Tuesday doesn't go through, it seems to me to say that Parliament can actually sort of rip that up and put their own deal together.
Well, but potentially they then get a say, which of course is a lot of ardent Remainers have been saying that despite the referendum result to leave, that they want a say on the detail of an exit. So yeah, that could happen. I personally think...
Sorry, we've got another call coming in. Someone wants to ask us. Evening.
Hello there, it's Terry from Golders Green here.
Hello, Terry.
Hello, I wanted to pick up from I think what Russell was saying about basically there's going to be some good stuff coming in from the after Brexit. Is it the case then that kind of the uncertainty, assume we're at peak uncertainty right now, okay, because nobody has a clue what's going to go on, whether the government's going to fall, all that sort of stuff. Would it be the case from your point of view, Russell, and perhaps from the other panel, that actually now's a kind of good time to buy? Because actually when it's all sorted out, whichever way it goes, no deal, whatever, actually there's going to be more certainty in the next 6, 8, 10 months, and then actually it's going to be much better for our house prices at that point, so you've actually made some money.
Do you want to come back on that, Russell?
Yeah, no, I think that's a very fair point. I think one of the dangers of what might happen post-Brexit, if there's a no-deal Brexit, what government I suspect will try and do is to slash corporation tax, slash VAT and so on to kind of ensure that the economy keeps going. If as a consequence of that we end up kind of back in this boom and bust cycle where things are great for 2 or 3 years, what we all know, and for those of us that have been in the property industry long enough, will know that what follows boom is bust, and then you end up with inflation going up, interest rates going up to counter that.
We haven't had a bust this time though, have we? What we've just had is a slowdown, have we? Would you not say?
Well, no, but we had late 80s, early 90s, we had 2008, 2009, so it's cyclical, isn't it?
Yeah.
So I think if we have a boom as a consequence of kind of getting over the Brexit thing, I think we could have an issue in terms of kind of what's next, really. But I guess to the point, is it a good time to buy? I think one of the interesting indicators over the last few weeks, although as we've just been talking about, house prices are up, volumes are stable and so on, is that the Rightmove index shows that actually the reduction in asking prices, so asking prices, not sold prices, that was seen in their last index about 2 weeks ago was actually pretty pronounced. So there is definitely less of an appetite, less of, I suppose, without putting too fine a point on it, less greed on the part of sellers insofar as what they're asking for properties.
Or is that more realism?
Less greed, more realism, I suppose, kind of the same thing, two sides of the same coin, I suppose. Yeah. But if it then follows as a consequence that there are some bargains out there, then yeah, I guess it is a reasonable time to be buying. And look, I think Kristjan would agree, particularly in December. I mean, December's the worst month for property. So if there are some sellers out there that are very, very keen to sell, either because they need to or because they're worried about what might happen post-Brexit, then look, yeah, this month could be, open season perhaps.
Thanks, Terry. Hope that solves your questions. Keep listening. Thanks for calling. Cheers. Okay, so just in summary, do we think the market's going to be good for lettings, Kristjan, next year?
Lettings, I think we're in for a bumpy ride next year or two.
Deal or no deal? Either way.
Either way, I think we're in for a bumpy one.
Russell, sales?
No, I think next year's going to be great. I really do. Honestly, I think once
funny enough, so do I.
Yeah, no. Once the sentiment comes back, and as I say, the biggest danger is overheating. But assuming that what we need is Mark Carney to go. I mean, I know he's staying for a little while, but we need that doommonger to leave the Bank of England really quickly.
Yeah, I mean, scaremongering like that doesn't help anyone.
We've done it every other week. Every other week he does it.
Bonkers.
Yeah. And look, his argument will be, look, I have to set out all of the scenarios, so I'm just being contingent. But whether it's him,
can't he just write to the government and they'll just keep it private anyway?
I mean, look, he should carry a scythe and wear a black cloak, shouldn't he? I mean, he's a proper Grim Reaper, isn't he?
Oh dear. Okay, look, we're going to go for a break. Can I just say, for everyone out there, we're broadcasting, as I say, right across the world. You can get on and listen to us on all the W's, lgr.co.uk. Let's go to a break. When we come back, we're going to go into Presentation is Everything.
Kings Group has been in the high street for nearly 30 years. Agreeing a sale on your property is the easy part. Ensuring it completes and you move is the hard part in today's market. That's why we're here with you every step of the way, and there's no upfront fee. At Kings Group, we are local property experts with a proven track record. Kings have won over 50 Estes Awards for customer service, voted for by you, the public. We have also been awarded the FIFO Gold Service 2018 Award for outstanding service, voted again by our satisfied clients. We are motivated to move you with the minimum fuss in the quickest possible time, while ensuring you're given the personal customer service and advice you deserve. Kings Group, with branch offices across North London, East London, Hertfordshire and Essex. Kings Group are offering a special discount of 20% to LGR listeners off all our standard fees. Simply mention LGR, The Property Show. For further information, please call on 01707 872 000 or visit www.kings-group.net. Kings Group. You only pay on results, not promises.
You are listening to The Property Show, produced by Iro Livanou and presented by Karl Knipe, partner at the Kings Group Estate Agency.
Welcome back. Hopefully you've all had a little cafe in the meantime. We've all had a glass of water and we're all ready to go. So straight in there, what I really wanted to get across to the listeners was why a lot of people say they're going to put their property on the market in the new year, after Christmas. I want to get across to them why it's so important that their property is actually on the market on the 25th of December. Russell, do you want to say a couple of words on that? Why it's important?
It's around the 26th in particular, Boxing Day, has always been a huge day for Rightmove traffic. I mean, Rightmove say, I think it's one of the top 2 days for traffic in the year. And I guess, look, we were just speculating, weren't we, Kristjan and I, that it's probably because people sit there at Christmas and a number of things occur, really. You know, maybe, dare I venture, that after a couple of days of the family being around, you might be itching to do something different than putting crackers and hearing the same old jokes across the turkey and so on. So people kind of, look for other things to do. New devices get trialled, iPads and phones and so on and so forth. And I think, the kind of respite that is Christmas and New Year, people start to settle a little bit and start thinking about next year. So, naturally they're going to start considering a move. So the 25th, 26th of December, strangely enough, they're very, very good days for property viewing.
Well, Rightmove published some stats to say that 26th of December last year there was over 20 million property pages viewed, building up to 40 million on the 2nd of Jan. I mean, and that's I think, I know that we at Kings, we do what we call DND, do not disturb, where the property's on the market, we gain the interest, but we just don't organise the viewings until into January because people don't want to be disturbed. But if you don't have your property on the market, you're going to miss all that potential traffic and all those potential viewings. So it's good to have those lined up. Veta, what do you think's the biggest mistake property owners and landlords do with their property? I mean, I can tell you a brief little scenario that I had a long time ago, many years ago, won't go into it too far. A gentleman who's a builder bought a property, called me round, asked me what I thought, said to him we need to think about the clientele it's going to sell to. Cut a long story short, it was in a nice area, but I said be very, very careful, don't go over the top, do everything to a decent standard, but don't spend silly money. Whatever you do, bathroom, make it a nice plain suite, nice white suite, because it's not for you to live in, it's not your choice, but that's very inoffensive. Okay, what does he do? Goes away, spends 3 months, does it up. I turn up, it's spectacular. But in the bathroom, he's got a pink bathroom suite. Top of the range. He spent thousands of pounds on his pink bathroom suite. Obviously, he wants top price for it. It took me 18 months to sell the property. Every time we got close to selling it, it was the days when the market was rising. He kept putting the price up. Cut a long story short, I finally sold it. Thank God for that. The day after completion, I drove past the property. It was a bungalow, and out on the front lawn was the pink bathroom suite that had been ripped out immediately. Obviously, they bought it for the property, not for the suite. And I think that's a classic example. So, Veta, have you got any great things that people shouldn't do?
Absolutely, yeah. Also, a question, where does one even find a pink bathroom suite?
Well, in the 1970s.
Right next door to the avocado.
I'm not that old. It was actually I think it was about the late 80s, and you find it on the garden of a property in Northall,
Nice.
Hertfordshire.
Yeah, well, they're obviously long-term changes. So, a bathroom is a big investment. So that's one side of things. I think for me, as a designer and as a customer, and I guess agents would probably agree, you've got two opportunities for people to look at your property. One is when it's photographed and it's on a website, and the second is when somebody comes in to actually physically view the property. Some people are able to see the potential in properties, whether they're covered in junk or, newspapers up the walls, but a lot of people aren't. So I think the biggest thing for me is making sure a property is nicely presented and it photographs well, and that means oftentimes clearing a lot of stuff out of a space. It can be sitting in the next room while you photograph a space, but you need to make things look as spacious as clean and nice, a nice balance between a blank canvas and a place that somebody would want to come and spend the rest of their life in.
Okay, we've got Texas coming in mad for you, Veta. I think it's the first time I've actually had a lady on the show. As I've always trying to get ladies on, but obviously you're a hit. Sorry, boys. Hello, LGR. I wanted to ask the panel if they thought it was worth adding back period features into a property that has been badly updated by previous owners. Do they see value in returning these sort of features before resale? Is it worth it? If yes, can the lady panelist, didn't catch her name, Veta, how to do this affordably? Cove-in, fireplace, etc. Source.
Yeah, absolutely. I think again, you want to do it well, but that doesn't mean spending a lot of money. Anything that makes a place feel more expensive and more grand, and that can be something like just making sure all your skirtings are done nicely, good, nice covings. Fireplaces is a different thing. I mean, it's a different level of expense.
Well, where should you source these sort of things? I mean, they're hardly being queue if you're trying to obviously put back originality.
It's an amazing thing. Everything is online these days.
What, eBay?
No.
Oh.
So every single supplier we use will have an online portal.
So if I put in original old fireplaces or something like that into I was going to say one of the well-known names, but I won't say it.
And there are also, London is great because there are equal amounts of people pulling things out. They are putting
sellers
things
and buyers.
in.
There's some amazing reclamation.
Yeah, so there are
places,
fantastic
Incredible.
You must see them all the time down in your areas. You're in Shoreditch.
Yeah.
We've got an amazing one. There's a massive old church which is a reclamation space. It's an entire church.
They're so much fun.
And you walk in and it's statues and fireplaces and chandeliers and it's incredible. Absolutely incredible.
Statues probably not
everyone's cup of tea. Not everyone's looking to
He's just got them dotted around his garden.
Yeah, you know.
No, in between the gnomes. Gnomes are a no-no, I take it.
Gnomes are a no-no.
Oh, right.
They were quite fashionable a couple of years back. But
looks like you're going to have to keep those 50 gnomes that you've got.
They'll come back in fashion.
They will.
Yep.
What about clutter?
Get rid of it.
Get rid of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Ruthless when you're going to sell or rent?
Just, if you can't be ruthless, pack it up and take it somewhere else. Because that's what people will notice when they walk into a space. If you have somebody coming into a viewing, you've got a lovely space and you've got, grandma's old furniture in there or somebody's 20-year-old Star Wars collection. Maybe some people would be into that. I don't know. But that's what people will notice.
Okay.
And you don't want to, people are only in a house for a very, very short period of time when they're physically viewing something. You don't want them to be distracted by anything else apart from how wonderful your house is.
If you're looking to rent a property, Kristjan,
yeah.
Does the condition of the property make a massive difference to the type of tenant you get? Or more importantly, does it make a difference, do you think, to the way the tenant acts during the tenancy?
I think a bit like buying, it creates that first impression, right? So if a tenant comes in to see a property and that property is a mess or something's not been fixed, I think the main question it starts raising is, what is this landlord and or managing agent like? You know, is my dishwasher going to break and it's going to take me 3 months to get it fixed, if I get it fixed at all? You know, is there damp lurking behind this, that and the other? So I think it still all comes down to those first impressions. I think one of the challenges, and you know, you'll know this as well, Karl, with lettings, is predominantly the majority of the time we're marketing properties which are tenanted. So then you have this slight scenario of, like, you want to deliver the best result for the landlord, but ultimately, you've got a tenant paying rent, and in London that's not a small amount. I mean, our average rent's nearly £3,000 a month, so you've got a tenant paying a substantial amount of rent. You don't really want to be waving the finger at them too much, going, this is how you're going to live whilst we're doing the viewings, but at the same time you're trying to look after the landlord. So I mean, we try and approach it and say, look guys, you remember the viewing experience with us, you know, we'd really appreciate it if you can just make a bit of an effort. You know, please make sure there's no stuff out on the side, you've given the bathroom a once over. You know, we don't expect it to be show home perfection. You know, I think that'd be too much to ask from a tenant, but you know, we do try and get them on board with that stuff.
So they need a deep clean? Should it be really, really clean before you try and rent it out?
I think if you're marketing an empty property, I think you know, really try and set
because a lot of landlords just don't want to spend that money, though, do they?
No, I think go
is
ahead
that
and do it.
short-sightedness?
I think it is, because I think really you should really have the property professionally cleaned before a tenant moves in anyway. So if you've got a vacant property, jump the gun, get that done now. Yes, you might have to pay to do a little light clean before your tenants move in, because it might, you know, you might get a bit of dust or whatever. But really, you know, if you want to attract the best tenants, show them that you're the best landlord. Show them that property is well looked after, that you appreciate them as a tenant, you appreciate their business, you value them, and that, you know, they're going to feel welcome and looked after in their home. And those are the tenants who tend to take pride in their place. They tend to fix things themselves a little bit, or they let you know straight away, you know, and then when it does come time to market it, they're on your side and the landlord's side. They want to help you find another fab tenant.
The way I look at it is, I think that if you have the property in good order and really sharp, I think that people are more likely to be careful. I think it's like cars. If you get in a car and it's immaculate, you tend not to want to drop anything on the floor or leave any rubbish. You put it in your pocket. When you get in there and you can't see the floor, you think, oh well, that's not going to make any difference, isn't it?
Yeah, spot on.
It's the same
and
scenario.
And clearly no one cares about this place anyhow.
Well,
yeah.
So another question here from Laurie. They like texting you, Veta. I'm keen to sell my basement flat in Islington, but with limited light already and short days during the winter months, I really need to work out how to make it look brighter and less gloomier. How can I cheaply make it lighter and more inviting?
Good question.
We all like cheap.
We like cheap. And cheap is not necessarily bad.
No.
There are a couple of things you can do. First of all, clean the windows. The simplest, easiest, cheapest thing you can do. In wintertime in particular, I think you want to stage the place so it feels lovely and cosy. So don't just have ceiling lights on, have nice floor lamps, have table lamps. Allow yourself the opportunity to have, or ask your agent to set the house up if they can get there 5 minutes earlier for any viewings, so that, or if you're leaving the place, set it up beforehand so that it does look lovely when people come in, that it's you know, it's cozy, it's welcoming, it's the sort of house that people will walk into and get a good feeling about. And I think that goes a long way. Going on with the staging as well, not necessarily particular to this question, I think anything you can do to make a place feel welcoming, like having beautiful clean white sheets on your bed, lovely fresh pillows. Again, you know, you can have your funny latex pillow in the cupboard, but just make it feel as hotel-like, as neutral but welcoming as possible.
Yeah, that's very true. When you go in a nice hotel, you do feel, ooh, I want to jump on the bed, don't you? And I want to. You know,
it doesn't take much.
It's very warming.
Make sure the bed is made nice and tight, nice and clean every morning. That's
good. Just want to say to you out there, give us a call, 0208 346 3345. Look, this is free interior designing. You normally have to pay for this. Or text us on 0737 6611 What about curb appeal, Russell?
Very important. In fact,
what is curb appeal?
Well, it's just as you pull up, it's whether you get that feeling in the first 3 or 4 seconds that property is appealing. And I think that curb appeal applies to the property that's for sale, but also actually applies to the properties around it. The amount of viewings that you can miss, particularly if an agent has been a bit selective in terms of the photographs that they've taken, where you've got a fairly nice house, but kind of next door to it there's a scrapyard, and the other side of it there's a fish and chip shop. And of course the agents, you know, manage to angle the photographs, of course, so that you can't quite see those those things. So look, the curb appeal is, its appeal, it's ambient, I suppose, in terms of whether something is, if it appeals to you immediately. There was some research done fairly recently, even on the appeal of front doors, believe it or not. If you saw that better,
yes.
Whereby different conditions and colours of front doors can actually adjust and alter
angular home improvements. It was,
and I guess, and I commented on this actually for somebody or other, and I said, well, I suppose it does make sense that if your first impression in that first few seconds is positive, well, then actually maybe in your head the price justification is greater. But also, I think if the property looks clean, I suppose to the point that was just made on the outside, then it's probably an indicator that on the inside it's pretty appealing too.
Yeah. Blue doors, apparently, they're number one.
Blue, black, and red, wasn't it? I think was it blue, black, and red?
Blue was the number one, closely followed by black and red. Yeah. Although red, I think I'm right in saying in Chinese is a bad thing. Oh, I'm sure I've had a couple of Chinese.
No brown, no green.
No, it's good luck, isn't it?
I don't know, is Chinese? It? I don't know. Perhaps if you're a listener,
Chinese, you've got to be careful with the door numbers.
You might want to ring in and put us right on that. I'm not too sure.
Yeah. The other thing with doors as well, make sure all your door hardware matches.
When you say hardware, what do you mean by that?
So your handles and knobs and things like that. So you don't have a gold lock and a silver handle underneath.
Well, that can be done relatively cheaply, can't it?
So cheaply. And I think even within the property, one very quick way of upgrading things is actually to just replace all your door handles on your internal doors. You can get them for £5 a set.
Not to have a doorbell with 2 bits of tape over that says bell not working.
Yes.
It's been sitting there like that for about 4 years.
Just take it off.
No one's bothered.
You've been round my house, yes? Could be worse when you use the knocker and it falls off in your hand. Not always that's not a great start, is it? You think if the knocker's going to fall off, what else is going to fall off? What about lighting? Is that important?
Yeah, very.
Yeah.
Again, can be upgraded really, really cheaply.
When you bring to, this is one thing that I've always thought. What I used to do when I used to get to a property that was vacant, I always just go round and turn all the little side lights on, particularly when it was just early evening, about this time of year, about 3:30, just to give it that ambience and that feel.
Absolutely, it goes a long way.
And one of the things that I always used to advise clients as well is to make sure the heating's on.
Yes, definitely.
You walk into a house and the clients keep their jackets on. It's not they're obviously not literally warm into it, so to speak.
One thing is nowadays with smart kit as well, all your smart thermostats and smart plugs that you can plug lamps into and stuff as well. It doesn't even have to be that much work involved with this. You can set this all up, you can control it yourself.
Absolutely.
Without having to run back and forward to the property each time.
Yeah, but there's nothing worth walking into a place and they're just being blinding overhead ceiling lights, nothing cosy about it.
I mean, we've actually had 2 high-end rental deals fall through this year, both because each property was fitted with the really cold blue lights.
Yeah.
And in both instances, I mean, one was a 2-bed flat that was about £900 a week. The other one was one that was about £1,300 a week. So serious money, And in both instances, we had a fantastic calibre tenant. It was like, absolutely love the flat, but you're going to have to change all the light bulbs. Now, being that type of property, it was like 100 light bulbs. And the landlord turned around and said, there's no way I'm spending £700 on light bulbs. Yeah. And then 6 weeks later,
I was going to say,
why their property hadn't let. And it was like, well
they probably lost more than £700 in that time.
You let go of a week's
3
rent
days
someone
rent.
who could have...
Yeah. And that goes to the other end of the market too. Energy-saving light bulbs that you can see from the underside, get rid of them. The little...
The LED ones.
They just make everything look cheap and nasty.
As property professionals, are we no longer advocating baked bread and coffee? Do you remember that?
Yes, I was actually going to ask that, because there's nothing better than going in someone's house and you can smell the coffee percolator going, is there?
So King still promote such things?
No, we don't.
These days, it's expensive scented candles.
Yes, yeah. That's a good. But it is not. I mean, I do think. I mean, I always think. You think of my mum when just someone was coming round, she'd go round spraying all the air fresheners around and things like that. And that is important, is it? If you've got clients coming in, you've just cooked a bit of fresh fish, for argument's sake. That's not going to be good, is it?
No. And we do quite a few show flats for developers, and that's one of the things that we always have in a bathroom and in a living room is some sort of scent in there. Yeah. In the same way that you walk into shops these days and you're just like, I don't know why it feels nice to be in here, but it just feels,
some really lovely.
So and it makes a big difference.
So, I was just going to say, sorry to interrupt. I
don't stop her. This is great stuff.
I always used to keep in the back of my car artificial plants. So when I go around a property, if it was a little bit untidy, and I'd tidy it up as best I can, but if there were things that wasn't quite right, I'd carefully position plants to cover it up so I could take the photos.
I was actually literally just about to say that there are so many great artificial plants these days, whether they're succulents or things like that. Sometimes it's really nice just to have something alive in a space as well. Well, not
seemingly.
Seemingly alive.
Pretending to be alive.
Well, we only have artificial plants at our house because I'll tell you the truth is my wife actually watered one of them once, and she was watering it for 2 weeks, and she was really pleased with herself because obviously
it hadn't died.
Yeah, it hadn't died.
It's sign of a good plant.
That's a true story. She'll kill me when I get home tonight. What about houses, flowers? Especially this time of year. What sort of flowers do you think? I mean, is there flowers around? I think there is, isn't there?
Yeah, there are, absolutely. I think one of the cheapest and easiest and most long-lasting things you can put in houses are eucalyptus leaves.
Yeah.
Coming from an Australian. They smell great. They last forever. You can go down to the markets and grab a big bunch of them. It's something that kind of, again, brings some life to a space, but it doesn't mean that you're, tossing out orchids every second week because you can't keep them alive.
Even in flats, though, you can get some I don't know, if you've got a window box, put a few little winter pansies in.
Yeah,
it
absolutely.
Wouldn't cost a lot, would it? But it's just those little things that make all the difference.
Yeah, and just walking into the house with a really critical eye from the start and just trying to imagine what somebody else would see.
Are we a fan of jet washing the drive?
Yeah, no, I think you've got to do as much as you possibly can. I think it's back to the point about first impressions. There's research that says that, despite all the sophistication now that goes into showing properties, estate agency, virtual tours and so on, that people will make up their mind, sometimes in seconds. And actually there's I think a really interesting debate in property now between head and heart. And the amount of times in my 25 years that, I've had an applicant come in saying, I must have a 3-bed and it must be within 3 minutes walk of the station. And you follow them up a couple of weeks later and they say, yeah, I bought that 2-bed in Daisy Lane. You say, what, Daisy Lane, that's 3.5 miles from the station? Yeah, that's the one. You say, well, why? We just fell in love with it. It's just beautiful. We loved it. So head and heart, I think, is a really, really interesting thing.
Coming to the end of the show, I wanted to ask you all, as Christmas is coming, the goose is getting fat, if you had got one little present, Veta, that you could give to the listeners out there involved in property, what would it be?
Oh, well, a wish rather than a gift.
A wish is fine, yes.
That everybody has a lovely, warm, cosy place to stay. They can spend Christmas with people that they love, and that they have a house that they love. I think that's the nicest thing in the world, that you have. You have something that you're happy to go home to at the end of the night.
Kristjan?
I'm going to stay on the advice side. I'm going to sort of say, really, if your aspiration is in 2019 whether to sell or rent out a property, when you're gearing up for that, try as best as you can to really sort of separate yourself from the property. Try and broke that emotional bond that you've almost uncertainly built up, particularly if it's been your home, and really
Which
try.
Is hard.
It is really, really hard. And, try where possible to really take that step back. Once you make that decision, once you make that commitment, really try and take that step back and consider what we've talked about and just really think, what are people walking going to want to see? What's going to make, what's going to drive their emotions? You might feel very passionately about your fuchsia pink lounge or your pink bathroom suite, but at the end of the day, what you really want to do is you want to get an easy sale and you want to get the best price you can as fast as you can, and forget the emotions. It doesn't matter what people think about what you did. Do what it takes to achieve that.
Okay. We're running out of time, Russell.
Quickly then, so off the back of what Kristjan's just said in terms of a swifter sale, I suppose, one of my big bugbears actually when pricing a home is that sellers are way too optimistic. And all the data shows that's not getting any better. And even though, as I referred to just now,
don't be optimistic.
Well, no, be realistic. And look, don't get 4 valuations and just, wait for the estate agent that, gives you the highest figure to give you that highest figure so that validates your optimism.
So you're going to give them a present of realism.
Yeah.
Fantastic. So, the sleigh bells are ringing. It's nearly time for me to go. Sell or no sell, rent or no rent. Hey, life goes on. We all think sometimes the world for us is coming to an end, but we're still here. Well, I am with you at least for one more minute. Don't become too wrapped up in politics. Enjoy your Christmas, whether you're on your own or spending it with the loved ones, family and friends. I'll be back in the new year on Wednesday the 6th of February for after an extended winter break. Ciao for now, and a very Merry Christmas to you.
The Property Show was brought to you by Kings Group, a multi-award-winning company. Your local high street property business that delivers on results and service. We'll get you moving.
Το King's Group έχει παρουσία στην αγορά ακινήτων για σχεδόν 30 χρόνια. Η συμφωνία πώλησης της ιδιοκτησίας σας είναι το εύκολο κομμάτι. Η εξασφάλιση της πώλησης όμως είναι το δύσκολο κομμάτι στη σημερινή αγορά. Γι' αυτό είμαστε εμείς εδώ, μαζί σας, σε κάθε σας βήμα, χωρίς προκαταβολή. Στο King's Group είμαστε ειδικοί στον τομέα των ακινήτων, με αποδεδειγμένο ιστορικό. Η εταιρεία Kings έχει κερδίσει περισσότερα από 50 βραβεία ΕΣΤΑΣ για την εξυπηρέτηση υψηλών προδιαγραφών των πελατών μας, για τα οποία ψηφίσατε εσείς, το κοινό. Μας απονεμήθηκε επίσης το βραβείο FIFO Gold Service 2018 για εξαιρετική εξυπηρέτηση, το οποίο πάλι ψηφίστηκε από τους πελάτες μας. Σας εξασφαλίζουμε ταχύτατες υπηρεσίες χωρίς άγχος, δίνοντας όλες τις απαραίτητες συμβουλές. Το King's Group έχει υποκαταστήματα στο Βόρειο και Ανατολικό Λονδίνο, στο Hertfordshire και στο Essex. Το King's Group προσφέρει στους ακροατές του LGR ειδική έκπτωση 20% σε όλες τις τιμές μας. Απλά αναφέρετε LGR The Property Show. Για περισσότερες πληροφορίες επικοινωνήστε στο 0170 787 2000 ή επισκεφτείτε την ιστοσελίδα μας www.kingspavlagroup.net. King's Group. Πληρώνετε μόνο μετά το αποτέλεσμα, όχι για υποσχέσεις.